So it might be a bit soon since I released my last video on the science of Mario Kart in February, but the new tracks just dropped, and driving around these two new cups got me to thinking, where the hell are the anti-gravity sections in these new tracks? Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Science Of, where I slowly overanalyze your favourite game shows and more. Today we're returning to the speed-inducing terror of Mario Kart, but this time we're not talking about any of the infamous Mario Kart weapons, but instead the karts themselves, and some of the many gimmicks that have flooded the game since Mario Kart made the move to 3D. It all starts way back in Mario Kart Double Dash, where, as the name implies, two-player karts were introduced, and then swiftly kicked out for the next title in the series, Mario Kart DS. This game didn't really add anything new mechanically, but then we got Mario Kart Wii and the introduction of performing tricks in order to get boosts to make your way around the tracks. And then its sequel, Mario Kart 7, being the first game to include both underwater and airborne travel, letting you fly around some classic Mario tracks. Then on the Nintendo Switch we got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Not sure what happened to the regular Mario Kart 8, but this is where we are today. This game introduced anti-gravity sections and a ton of DLC. Finally, we have Mario Kart Tour, which introduced the game to microtransactions, and Mario Kart Live that introduced your pets to a brand new toy. For today's video, we're going to dive into Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's floating go-karts to see just how these sci-fi concepts could happen and have happened in the real world. Before we delve into anti-gravity, let's take a look at how well the gliders in Mario Kart are at keeping Mario and friends above the ground in the track's many glider sections. These gliders do have a few different designs ranging from paper planes to paragliders, but for the purpose of this video we'll be investigating the special glider, which takes the form of a typical hang glider. These gliders are shaped like an isosceles triangle, so to get the area we use base multiplied by height divided by 2. But it's way easier just to look up the average size of these hang gliders, where we can find that the surface area of the wings can range from as little as 13 meters squared to as high as 19 meters squared. These hang gliders are shaped like an isosceles triangle, so to get the area we can use base multiplied by height divided by 2. But it's way easier just to look up the average size of hang gliders, where we find that their surface area of the wings can range from as little as 13 meters squared to as high as 19 meters squared. In the case of a 19 meter wide glider, you could have a pilot that weighs in the region of 45 and 65 kilograms. This would be ideal for our fastest kart combination, which we measured as being 52 kilograms in the previous video, and would even give a little space for extra weight dependent on the rider. But regardless of whether or not the gliders are big enough to support this weight, it won't matter if we can't solve the other problem when it comes to using hang gliders, and it's this issue that stops the Mario Kart gliders from being plausible methods of flying around the tracks. You see, the Mario Kart glider sticks out from behind a kart on a very spindly looking support, and whether or not this glider is able to stay in place, there's going to be a significant issue with the weight distribution. You see, with normal hang gliders, you'll want to have the weight distributed as evenly as possible at the front and back of the glider. In the case of our Mario Kart gliders, it seems that a huge amount of weight is going to be pushed to the tip of the glider, causing it to dive whenever a driver goes off a cliff. This makes the flying sections in tracks like the newly introduced Ninja Highway impossible to pull off, regardless of how many cc's the kart can work with. So now we know that gliding is absolutely out of the question, at least with the current placement of the glider. That should mean that the anti-gravity racing is impossible, right? Well, it's not as clear-cut as you might think. In order to understand how gravity can be fought against, we first need to explain how gravity works. We did this first all the way back in Can Minecraft's World Be a Cube, where I looked at how the universe was formed and how strong gravity on Minecraft's world was. To explain it in simple terms, gravity is an attractive force experienced between any two masses. You see this at work when you drop a pebble, step on a scale, and throw a banana peel at an enemy. Whilst this attraction is experienced by anything with a mass, it isn't really felt by beings as small as humans, turtles, or shy guys. This attraction only starts to get felt with planetary bodies, moons and planets and the suns they orbit. The greater the difference in mass between these two objects, the greater their gravitational force. This also applies for how close the two masses are to each other, with gravitational forces weakening as the distance between any two masses is increased. In the case of Mario Kart, we have the karts racing around tracks that move away from the centre of Earth's gravity, either by floating just above it or driving against waterfalls. But how could this be done in any capacity? Earth's gravity is 9.81 newtons, and as such it requires a fair bit of energy to conquer. with rockets that escape the Earth's gravitational field requiring speeds of just over 11 kilometers per second, over 25,000 miles per hour, just to burst out of the Earth's gravitational field. But our karts don't need to pull off a feat that's this impressive. How about we start with having them float above the ground like we see in game? How would this be possible? For this question, the name of the game is magnets. In order to understand how magnets can be used to levitate a Mario Kart, we have to look into an electromagnetic phenomenon known as Lenz's Law. Lenz's Law, introduced by Heinrich Friedrich Emil Lenz, states that an induced electrical current flows in a direction such that the current opposes the charge that induced it. In other words, an electrical current induced by the changing magnetic field will always create a counterforce opposing the force inducing it. Let's say that you thrust a permanent bar magnet through a coil of wire. This will result in the induction of an electrical current in the coil. This current will in turn set up a magnetic field around the coil, turning it into a magnet. Let's say that we had a group of little disc-shaped magnets, and stuck them on a wheel and then spun that wheel at incredible speeds, let's say around 8,000 RPM. If these magnets were placed in an alternating positive-negative polarity, then they would induce an alternating current in a conductive ground. Move the magnet faster and you'll get a larger current, keep it still and the magnetic field doesn't change, leaving you with zero current. Now that we have an electrical current in the surface, the induced current will produce a magnetic field that will be in the opposing charge of the magnetic field produced by the wheel. That would be able to produce a magnetic field powerful enough to, say, lift the whole cart and drive her off the ground. And this isn't just speculation. If you have a cool $10,000, then you can go out and buy a hoverboard for yourself, the Hendo hoverboard. The only problem with this method is that you need a non-ferrous conductive surface, such as copper, to be able to produce sufficient current to produce a magnetic field great enough to push the board and rider off the ground. Now this is pretty damn incredible, but what if we don't want to pave every road with aluminium foil for Mario and Pals to have a few races? Well, in this case, we can take advantage of a property of magnetic fields known as flux pinning. Flux is the measurement of magnetic field lines passing through any given surface. This takes advantage of materials called superconductors, Type 2 superconductors to be specific. These are materials that can conduct electricity without any resistance at all, but only when supercooled to hundreds of degrees below zero. Normal superconductors expel magnetic fields from their bodies, but Type 2 superconductors allow tiny magnetic field lines through their being and allow them to pin these superconductors in place. This allows them to be pinned in place without anything holding it down. You can even move the surface and it will keep its position as long as it's cool enough. In this situation, the whole Mario Kart would need to be made from a Type 2 superconductor and undergo constant cooling from liquid nitrogen. Now these do still need a magnetic field in order to function, but in the case of Type 2 superconductors, these magnetic fields can be below concrete. This might even account for the automated steering and slowing down when you go off track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. A magnetic core is running through all of the tracks so that racers need to stay on it to keep levitating throughout the race. The only thing that isn't accounted for in either of these situations is how the karts are able to accelerate or turn whilst in these gravity-defying sections of track. Because the problem with magnetic field-based levitation in general is that you don't have friction with the ground. And whilst that will limit energy loss once you're moving, getting started is a bit trickier, as there's nothing to give you that original push. Now fortunately, most of the time seasoned Mario Karters will be able to get around a track without having to stop anywhere. But for those less skilled, a standing start from a grass verge of an anti-gravity section would need a bit of a push before being able to get back onto the track. Turning is arguably even worse, with no way of being able to turn your kart without grip and tyre traction. Now Mario could use his own body weight to shift a kart whilst it's floating around, but that's not going to provide the sharp turns needed to get around turns in Sweet Sweet Canyon. So there we go. Whilst the gliders in Mario Kart are going to be a bit hopeless for keeping the karts up in the air, with a little effort they could be perfect from what we see in the games. And whilst we're a little way off proper anti-gravity vehicles, the Mario Kart's method of levitating could be pretty reasonable, especially when comparing it to what we see in the real world. As always, if you enjoyed this video then don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to help combat the ever-changing and frustrating YouTube algorithm, then make sure you share the video to help my channel grow. If you have any scientific subjects or topics that you'd like to see me cover in the future, then please tell me in the comments down below. As well as that, follow me on Twitter to get updates on the latest science of videos, and join my Discord for chats about science, gaming and more. But until then, this has been the Science of Mario Kart. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you're looking for game-based content, then you can join me over on Twitch, where I live stream 3 times a week playing all manner of games suggested by the community. Or if you want to support the channel even further, then you could also contribute to my Patreon, where you'll get behind the scenes access to the creation of all videos, as well as being able to vote on what the next Science of video will be.